A tall, confident black man named Darius stepped out of his car and walked towards the gleaming office building of Stratham and Company, a prestigious consulting firm known for its multi-million-dollar contracts and elite clientele. Dressed in a sharp navy suit, he cut an impressive figure. But today, he wasn't just another professional. He was the new owner of the company. He had recently acquired Stratham and Company after the previous owner retired, keeping the news quiet to observe the company's culture firsthand. As he entered the lobby, he noticed a few employees glancing at him with surprise, clearly not expecting to see someone like him there. He brushed it off, eager to meet his team. But as he approached the reception desk, the secretary, an older woman named Evelyn, narrowed her eyes and fixed him with a stern look. "Excuse me, sir. Can I help you?" she said, her voice curt and slightly condescending. Darius smiled, extending his hand. "Hi, I'm Darius. I'm here to meet with the executive team." She didn't shake his hand and instead crossed her arms, eyeing him suspiciously. "Do you have an appointment?" Evelyn asked, her tone even frostier now. "Yes, I actually do," he replied calmly, trying to keep the conversation polite. "I'm here to discuss some upcoming projects." But Evelyn barely let him finish. "I'm sorry, but you can't just walk in here. This is a high-security building and we don't allow solicitors or unauthorized personnel to enter," she stated firmly, ignoring the fact that Darius was clearly dressed in professional attire. Darius's smile faded slightly, but he maintained his composure. "Ma'am, I'm not a solicitor. I'm here as—" "I don't care what you're here as," she snapped, cutting him off. "We have important clients here, and we don't need random people disturbing the office." She turned to her computer screen, clearly dismissing him. Darius took a deep breath, feeling the sting of her words but choosing to let it slide. He thought about revealing his position right there, but a part of him wanted to see how far this behavior would go. He had already heard about subtle instances of racial discrimination within the company and wanted to witness it firsthand. "Look, I really think you're making a mistake," he said, still polite but now firmer. "I'm actually here for a meeting, and I'd appreciate it if you could confirm that with someone." Evelyn rolled her eyes. "I know who's allowed in here and who's not, so I suggest you leave before I call security." Just then, another employee, a junior assistant named Lauren, walked by and caught the exchange. She had seen Darius in some of the preliminary company announcements and recognized him. "Oh my gosh, Mr. Hayes, it's you," Lauren said, her voice surprised but respectful. Evelyn shot Lauren a glare. "Do you know this man, Lauren?" Lauren hesitated, sensing the tension. Yes, Evelyn. This is Mr. Darius Hayes. He's, actually the new owner of the company." A stunned silence fell over the room. Evelyn's face went pale, her mouth opening and closing as she tried to process what Lauren had just said. Darius watched her reaction calmly, allowing her discomfort to sink in. "Oh, Mr. Hayes, I had no idea," she stammered, scrambling to find the right words. Darius simply raised an eyebrow. "Well, maybe it's time you started treating people with a little more respect, regardless of what you assume about them." But Darius's words didn't quite hit home for Evelyn. In the coming days, he observed more subtle signs of racism throughout the company. In meetings, he noticed how the few black employees in the room were often ignored or interrupted. He watched as Evelyn and a few other senior staff members interacted warmly with white employees but gave only curt nods to the minority staff members. These microaggressions were subtle but unmistakable. Determined to make a change, Darius decided to organize an all-staff meeting to address the company's values. But as he announced the meeting, he overheard Evelyn muttering to a coworker, "I don't see why we need some big diversity speech. People like him are always pushing for things to change." This time, Darius had heard enough. He took her aside privately and laid it out plainly. "Evelyn, I've noticed your behavior, and it's not only unprofessional but entirely unacceptable. If you don't believe in treating everyone here with respect, regardless of their race or position, then Stratham and Company is not the place for you." For the first time, Evelyn seemed to grasp the weight of her actions, her face turning red as she mumbled an apology. But Darius was focused on a larger goal. He implemented a mandatory diversity and sensitivity training program, inviting specialists to lead sessions and create a more inclusive atmosphere. Despite resistance from some employees, the training sessions led to real conversations and eye-opening moments for the team. Employees started sharing stories of subtle discrimination they had faced, fostering empathy and understanding. Over time, Darius's influence transformed the culture at Stratham and Company, creating an environment where everyone, regardless of their background, felt valued and respected. But he never forgot that first encounter with Evelyn, a stark reminder of the work still needed to create genuine equality in the workplace. After a few months, the changes Darius implemented at Stratham and Company were starting to bear fruit. The training sessions, uncomfortable for some at first, had led to a more open dialogue across teams. Even Evelyn seemed to be making an effort to show more respect toward colleagues she'd previously overlooked. But as Darius knew all too well, systemic change rarely comes without resistance, and one incident in particular brought this to light. One afternoon, Darius received a complaint from Maya, a young black woman who had recently been promoted to a managerial role. She told him about an uncomfortable situation with Ron, a senior project manager. Ron, she said, had made it clear that he didn't trust her leadership and often went around her to get approvals from other managers. Darius was disappointed but not entirely surprised. He had noticed a pattern with Ron and a few other senior employees who seemed to undermine women and people of color in the company. Determined to address this, Darius arranged a meeting with Ron. He chose his words carefully, aware that Ron had been with the company for nearly a decade and wielded a certain influence over the rest of the team. Ron, Darius began calmly, I've noticed that you've bypassed Maya's authority on several occasions. Can you explain why? Ron shifted uncomfortably, clearly taken aback by Darius's directness. Well, it's not that I don't respect her, it's just that she's new, and I have a certain way of doing things, Ron replied, clearly grasping for an excuse. Darius nodded but didn't let him off the hook. I understand you have experience here, but Maya is a manager, and her role deserves respect. If you're undermining her because you think she's new, that's a problem. It's our responsibility to uplift and support each other, especially as leaders in this company. Ron's expression soured, but Darius pressed on. I won't tolerate a culture where certain people feel dismissed or lesser. That kind of behavior won't move this company forward. It'll only hold us back. After the meeting, Ron seemed shaken but reflective. Over time, he began working with Maya more collaboratively, recognizing that her fresh perspective brought valuable insight to their projects. Slowly, the atmosphere in the office shifted as employees saw Darius's commitment to equity and respect permeating every aspect of the workplace. Then, one day, Darius received a visitor, Evelyn. She entered his office with an uncharacteristic humility. It had been months since their first tense encounter, and she had undergone her own transformation. She hesitated, fidgeting with her hands, before finally speaking. Mr. Hayes, Darius, she began, using his first name for the first time. I owe you an apology, a real one. When you first came here, I was, well, let's just say I wasn't open to the changes you wanted to bring. I didn't understand them, and to be honest, I didn't want to. But now, I see things differently. Darius looked at her, genuinely surprised by her openness. Evelyn went on, her voice growing more emotional. The trainings, the conversations, they've made me realize how many biases I've carried for years. I never considered how my behavior might have affected others, and I'm ashamed of that. I know I can't change the past, but I want you to know I'm committed to doing better. Darius felt a sense of relief mixed with hope. Evelyn's apology felt sincere, and it was a testament to the progress they had all made. Thank you, Evelyn. It takes courage to reflect and make a change, he replied, offering her a kind smile. The next day, Darius held a company-wide town hall meeting. As he took the stage, he looked out at the faces of his team, each person contributing to a company that was beginning to reflect the values he believed in. He spoke about the journey they had all been on, the challenges, the growth, and the moments of learning. He shared his vision for Stratham and Company, a place where every person could bring their full, authentic selves to work without fear or prejudice. The employees erupted in applause, and Darius felt a swell of pride, not just for himself but for everyone who had embraced this journey. He had transformed Stratham and Company into more than a successful consulting firm. It was now a beacon of respect, empathy, and unity. And as the applause faded, he knew the work would continue. But looking at the faces of his team, he felt confident that they were ready to meet whatever challenges lay ahead together. In the weeks following that transformative town hall meeting, the atmosphere at Stratham and Company felt almost unrecognizable. Employees were engaging with each other on a deeper level, collaborating in ways that went beyond professional boundaries. The new inclusivity was boosting morale, creativity, and productivity, and the company was starting to receive attention in the industry for its positive shift. One day, Darius was approached by Kevin, a young intern who had recently joined the team. Kevin, visibly nervous, asked if he could speak with Darius privately. They walked to Darius's office, and as the door closed, Kevin looked down, fumbling with his hands before speaking. "Mr. Hayes, I wanted to thank you," Kevin began, his voice shaky. "I've never worked anywhere like this before. When I first got here, I thought I'd have to keep my head down and just get by. But seeing how you've transformed this place, it's made me feel like I actually belong." Darius was touched. He knew how alienating corporate spaces could feel, especially for young black employees just starting out. "Thank you, Kevin," he said warmly. "But remember, you belong here because of your skills, your hard work, and your perspective. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." Kevin nodded, his expression growing more confident. But before leaving, he turned and added, "It's not just people like me who see the difference. I've heard a lot of the senior staff talking about how much they appreciate what you've done here, even the ones who might not say it to your face." Darius smiled, feeling a profound sense of accomplishment. His journey hadn't been about earning praise, but about creating lasting change that people would carry forward. Yet, hearing this validation meant more than he had anticipated. Just as things seemed to be settling into a positive rhythm, Darius received an unexpected invitation. An elite business conference, one he knew was attended by some of the industry's most influential leaders, had reached out, asking if he would be willing to speak on a panel about diversity and corporate responsibility. He was honored but also aware that these conferences sometimes use topics like diversity as little more than buzzwords. Nevertheless, he saw this as an opportunity to represent not only his experiences but the experiences of so many others. A few weeks later, as he stood on stage at the conference, he looked out over a sea of faces. He could sense a mix of curiosity, respect, and perhaps a bit of skepticism. He spoke about the journey at Stratham and Company, emphasizing the importance of true inclusivity over superficial gestures. He shared stories, anonymously of course, about the moments that had shaped their progress, including Evelyn's transformation, Ron's gradual shift, and Kevin's experience. The crowd listened intently, and by the end of his talk, Darius received a standing ovation. After the panel, several CEOs and industry leaders approached him, genuinely interested in learning how they could bring similar changes to their own companies. One CEO even admitted, "I've been blind to the culture in my own office. Hearing your story made me realize how much more I need to do." The impact of his talk rippled out, sparking conversations across the industry. Stratham and Company became a model for diversity and inclusion, and other companies began reaching out, asking to partner with them on projects focused on building more equitable workplaces. Darius was thrilled, not only because his company was thriving, but because they were creating a legacy that went beyond consulting services. Back at the office, the team celebrated their newfound recognition. Darius took a moment to thank everyone, emphasizing that this progress wasn't the result of one person's work, but of a collective commitment to change. Evelyn, Ron, Lauren, Kevin, and countless others had all played a role, and he made sure each of them knew how important they were to the company's future. And in that moment, Darius realized that he had finally built the company he had always envisioned. One where every person, regardless of their background, felt like they truly belonged. It was a place where people didn't just come to work. They came to grow, to challenge themselves, and to support one another in creating something meaningful. And as they moved forward, Darius knew that Stratham and Company would continue to lead, not just in business, but in the values that define them. The journey had been hard-fought, and he knew there would always be challenges ahead. But surrounded by a team united in purpose, Darius felt ready to take on whatever came next. In the months that followed, Darius watched Stratham and Company flourish in ways he had once only dreamed of. New projects rolled in, with companies eager to learn from his team's transformative approach. Stratham and Company was not only consulting on business strategies, but also helping organizations build healthier, more inclusive environments. They were redefining success by putting people, compassion, and respect at the center of their work. One day, Darius received a call from an unexpected contact, a representative from a prestigious national award committee. The committee had been observing his impact within the industry and invited him to a ceremony honoring leaders in corporate social responsibility. Stratham and Company was nominated for a special award recognizing companies that were shaping the future with integrity and inclusivity. On the night of the awards ceremony, Darius stood alongside his team, humbled and grateful. Evelyn, Ron, Lauren, and even young Kevin were there, each person representing a piece of the journey they had shared. When Stratham and Company's name was announced, Darius took a deep breath, knowing the award wasn't just for him. It was for everyone who had contributed to the company's growth and spirit. In his acceptance speech, Darius looked out at the audience and shared a final message that had become his guiding belief. In business, profit is often the measure of success, he began. But here at Stratham & Company, we believe true success lies in the lives we impact, the respect we give, and the legacy we build together. My hope is that more leaders remember that no accomplishment is meaningful if it comes at the cost of our humanity. The audience erupted in applause, and Darius felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was more than an award. It was a validation of the journey he and his team had been on. And as they celebrated together, he realized that Stratham & Company had become everything he had hoped. A beacon of respect, resilience, and change in the industry. The legacy was set, and Darius knew that, even as new challenges arose, they would face them as a unified team. Together, they had transformed not just a company but countless lives, setting a standard that would inspire others for years to come. With a smile, he looked around at his team, knowing that the future was bright and that they had built something truly extraordinary, something that would last far beyond any of them.